We're going to do something a little bit different in this video. I am going to actually break down the results of this pour and give you a really close-up look as to how that looks on the canvas. In this pour, I did not use my heat gun or my hairdryer. I let the resin and the products itself do the work. So let's go check that out. Sun shines here in the Northeast, especially in the early spring. I'm out in the backyard and I am trying to prep canvases. I have 3 colors that I'm working with, actually 4. I'm working with purples and blues, white, and just a little touch of gray here and there. Spray painting my canvas does a couple of things for me. It allows me to seal the canvas rather than having to use gesso. And it also gives me the comfort of having the background with a little bit of depth added for resin. I'll be using the Better Boat resin today. I mixed up a total of 35 ounces for this 16 by 40 canvas. I do support my canvases on the back so that they can hold up from the weight of the resin. If you haven't checked it out, look at my video that I did on exactly how I go about supporting that canvas. I have about 7 or 8 colors of the purples, and they range from opaques to transparent, and then 4 colors in the blue range, and again using some transparents along with opaques that I find gives you nice results. I'm using my heat gun and my torch and working that canvas over and letting it cure overnight. All right, we're going to start with some acrylic paint mixed up with some India ink to get this color of dark blue. It's a metallic dark blue, but you can use acrylic paints, India ink, alcohol ink, acrylic inks. They all work great. This is Black Diamond Silver Pearl, and when I use a mica, I like to use some 99% alcohol in there. And then I'm going to put down a very transparent ribbon here. That's the Liquitex acrylic ink, one of my favorites to use. You can turn your cups over to get every little bit of resin out. I did mix up 36 ounces, but I did it in 3 smaller batches because the Better Boat resin tends to set up quickly. This is the Pearlex mica, and again, it's got a little bit of Liquitex acrylic ink mix into it to give it just a little bit different color and some 99% alcohol. So here I'm making up my second batch of resin, and I'm going to start putting out some more blues. All my colors used will be listed in the description box, so if you're interested in seeing what products I use, go check that out there. Putting in some clear, and that's going to help with getting the effects to allow the resin and the colors to drift in against one another. Again, I'm not using a heat gun or a hair dryer. I'm going to allow the resin and the products to create their own effects. So it's a little bit different on this one, and in the end is where I'm going to be wrapping up for you and giving you a much better detailed description about how these all work together. Check this one out. That's Pebeo Vitrail, and that's their deep blue. It actually looks almost purple on the canvas, but it's a very, very crystal clear color that you can add into your resin. A little bit more from Black Diamond, their Purple Haze, again with the 99% alcohol in there. And we're going to make that final batch of resin, and I'm going to leave this one clear. I have enough color on the canvas, and I'm just going to fill in with the clear. I'm also going to work my, well, I had a little bit of blue sitting in the cup there, but at any rate, I'm going to work the clear around the sides of the canvas. I don't want to tilt this. I don't want to use a hair dryer. I don't want to use a heat gun. So I'm just going to let the resin do its work and those products in there. When I use the torch, it thins the resin out and it wants to find its own level spot. The Better Boat resin does tend to hold on to the bubbles, so make sure that you take your time with the torch to get those out of there. I usually come back again and give it one more hit after it's sit for a little bit. But you can see it just moves and flows. So let's let that cure overnight and we'll take a look at how it looks in the morning. Okay, we're back to it here, and again, this piece was done with a lot of custom mixing of colors. I used acrylic paint, I used acrylic ink, I used alcohol ink, I used mica powders. Yeah, a lot of stuff went into making this piece. So let's break it down and get a look at what all we've got in here. Now, this really nice dark blue, it's got a little bit of a sparkle. That's the acrylic paint that I used. It's Artist Loft. It's their metallic, and it's a real pretty paint to use. Very minimal amount of paint was used, because if you use too much acrylic, or any substance in your resin, it's going to react badly. So this one was mixed up with a little bit of acrylic, or an India ink, I'm sorry, Bombay India ink was mixed into it to get that real pretty sparkle and a dark, dark blue color. So really nice, add some depth in there. You can see this is from the first layer of the pour. That's where I've got some of that white lacing and it's shining through. The here is the background. You can see it's that blue, but that's the Liquitex acrylic ink, the phthalocyan blue green shade. And I love using those because they really give a nice transparent color, and it builds those layers in real pretty. So this is Pearl-Ex in here. The Pearl-Ex is a combination of the Pearl-Ex mica powder. It is the Duo blue-green, and I also put a few drops of the Liquitex Prussian blue is in there, and it really makes it just so pretty. And again, not having to use the heat gun or the blow dryer. It moved on its own. It's got that nice little sweep in there, and it has those little cells that popped open. So really a nice, here's another look in this area. You can see it almost has like that bubbling in there. Isn't that pretty? Let's see if I can find another spot. Here's some more of that same color. And again, you know, if I had used the heat gun or a hair dryer to move this around, it would not look like this. It would have a completely different look. So you want to use different techniques. Now let's get to over here. This is some of that silver pearl from Black Diamond, and you can see those nice little lines. Here's a good spot up here. Look at that. And again, this is because it wanted to level itself out. So it has these like almost like it looks like scratching in there, but you know, this surface is completely smooth, so it's down in the resin. But the mica powder mixed up with a little bit of 99% alcohol, it gives you some different effects. This is also a Black Diamond. That is their Purple Haze. Love that color. Again, mixed in with some 99% alcohol, and it helps get effects out of that. Same thing right there. Check that purple out. Beautiful, huh? And this is the Pinata. This is their alcohol ink. It is their Passion Purple, And you can see that really didn't give much effects. The color is gorgeous. Now, one of the things I always have concerns about with the alcohol inks is they're not very UV stable, so watch for that. You can counter it by using purples because that's going to help to adjust for that, but you just don't get a lot of effects. But it's a pretty look on here. It just kind of fades off. Very nice and transparent though. Very light color. And what else did we do? So I did these lines of color when I was getting to the end of the project. What I would do is I took my popsicle stick and I just scraped it right here onto my plastic covered tabletop, loaded up that pop stick with a bunch of color on the tabletop and let it just pour off. And that's the result. Look at that. Isn't that pretty? What happens to create these little holes in here is those are actually created by the bubbles, because when you're, scraping it up with your stick off of the tabletop, you're actually putting bubbles into the resin. And when you let it pour off the stick and go into the resin and let it dribble right off onto your soft resin on your piece, as those bubbles come up to the surface, they pop. And that's what you get. Pretty cool, don't you think? And then I did another one that went all the way up here. And there's some more of those bubbles that burst open, and that's what they left behind. So there you go. That's fun to do. And anybody can do that. There's a little bit over here. All right. I also used, I had Pebeo. It's their Vitrail, and you can use it on glass, but I like to use it in resin as well. It's extremely transparent. It is just so clear. That's going to be, let's see if I can find a spot in here, because it's almost like a purpley color. That's going to be right down in here. Not the metallic purple, that's the black diamond, but right alongside of it, that's going to be what came from that Vitrail. That's, again, it's the Pebeo Vitrail that produced that. So that's fun to use. See if you can get a hold of it. Tiny little bottles, and they're not cheap, but if you get a couple of colors, it's always good to play around with some of those. So those are some of the things that happened on this piece. And again, try not to always do the same thing. Do something a little bit different. See what you get. And, write it down. Keep a log about, hey, I mixed this and this, and I really like that color. And boy, that color looks really great next to this one. And you'll keep getting more and more what I call tools in your war chest for attacking your resin pieces. I hope you enjoyed this, and I'm going to have a couple other suggestions of videos for you here at the end. Hopefully you'll watch those, and we'll have some more fun learning together with resin art. Enjoy!